Here up and early.
I'm telling you.
I also have the Member of Parliament, Kuria East, Mheshimiwa Marwa Kitayama. Apologies for that. Karibu sana to NTV. Have you been here before?
Yes, quite a few times.
Not
Hosted by you.
Not in the morning and not hosted by me. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting conversation.
Thank you.
I also have Haman Manyora. Haman, you're a bit late.
Yeah.
Few minutes late.
I'm giving a list. You didn't organize my parking.
But what matters is that you're here in good time to start the newspaper review. And we start with the Daily Nation, the #1 daily in the country and in the region. And the headline of the Daily Nation, gentlemen, you will be helping me to break down these stories. The Daily Nation has decided to review what we went through about a year ago. That is 48 hours of drama at Bomas. They are saying the 2022 elections, President William Ruto is marking 1 year in office this week. It is actually the 13th of September. That is when he was sworn in last year. So he marks 1 year today. Just to give you the kick on that story, as a tense and anxious nation waited for the announcement of their next president, the National Tallying Center in Nairobi, that was the Bomas of Kenya, was receiving visitors with various requests to IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and his team. But the events of August 14th and 15th were possibly the defining moments of the election. That story you will find on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation, written by Moses Nyamuri and James Smart. Still on the Daily Nation, on the top deck of the Daily Nation, more under 50s getting early cancer diagnosis and deaths. This is according to a study that diets high in red meat, low in fruit, high in sodium and low in milk, as well as just to get that for you, it says diets high in red meat, low in fruit, high in sodium and low in milk, as well as alcohol and tobacco consumption are the main risk factors for early onset cancer. This is according to researchers. You want more on that story, it is on page 11 of the Daily Nation. Still on the top deck, a story on the education sector. And lately we have been seeing members or teachers from the northeastern province who are, especially non-locals, asking to be moved from that particular region. And the Daily Nation now reports blow to non-local teachers in northeastern province as the Teachers Service Commission declines transfer requests. There are also 2-3 puffs on the Daily Nation, the front page. President William Ruto, why I want official opposition leader post. Remember, the president is amongst the leaders who is spearheading the creation of the office of the opposition, and this is one of the things that will be discussed by the National Dialogue Committee. And just to go back, just to show that the president is indeed committed to this, remember there's that memoranda he wrote to Parliament, I think last year, was it last year, Mheshimiwa Kitayama, where that particular push was there. So there is also a story from Morocco, that very sad story. Morocco mourns quake victims as death toll surges past 2,000. The strongest ever quake recorded in the North African country has killed at least 2,012 people and injured over 2,000, many seriously, according to the latest official figures. So before we go to the other papers, oh yes, there is an interesting story, and for the next couple of days we will be doing a serialization of Beth Mugo's book. I think it will be launched tomorrow. And in today's paper, page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation, how Uhuru ICC case shook the Kenyatta family and changed me. That is a serialization that we have from Beth Mugo's book that will be, is on page 2. The book is titled Early Bird. It's a memoir by Senator Beth Mugo, and she speaks about a couple of things, including how the ICC case shocked or transformed the Kenyatta family and Beth Mugo in particular. There is also a tragedy in how Vuvuzela toy turned the family's life upside down. Quite a heartbreaking story about a boy who went to buy toy and ended up swallowing a loosely fitted cap on the device. And lastly, those are the stories on the Daily Nation. Just to get a reaction, I'll start with you, Martin.
Yes.
The Daily Nation is reviewing what we went through 1 year ago at the Bomas of Kenya. 1 year down the line, you have had the very different stories that were told. These stories were told in court. They were equally told during the tribunal to have out IBC, former IBC Commissioner Masit. What do you make out of such stories? Because these are revelations that are coming over 1 year. What does it speak of our democracy? What does it speak of our election?
Many things, Ibrahim. One is that we are yet to find what we are looking for in terms of an independent elections and boundaries commission. What we saw in Bomas was not an independent commission, was an incompetent commission led by 3 commissioners on one end and 4 commissioners on the other. And what we also saw collectively is that some of those commissioners, even as they broke ranks and went to address the press, really looked very inept and incompetent in terms of their own appreciation of their roles as commissioners. And so they betrayed, or they portrayed what you would say was a poorly assembled commission, with some commissioners perhaps having more experience and taking advantage of those who are inexperienced, to the extent that we never had what you would have called a commission function, because a commission is not Chebukati or the commission or the chairman. A commission is the entirety of the commissioners sitting and agreeing. So the results we are seeing coming out, eventually even the presidential results, were not issued by the commission. Now, that is something else, and I know that the courts have a different view about it, but there is a problem about that, and on democracy, we still have a long way to go, because we do not necessarily conduct free and fair elections. Our elections are determined sometimes by extra, legal mechanisms, and what we saw in Bomas is typical. I mean, those who didn't like it used force, those who liked it used songs. Now, all those things speak to our democracy.
Marwa, these are allegations coming from the commissioners, because all of them are speaking from a backroom conversations. According to Wafula Chebukati in a sworn affidavit in court, as well as what they presented to the tribunal that was seeking to oust the commissioners, there were attempts to influence the election. It's now 1 year down the line. One may ask then, because there is already a government in place, how do we seal this? How do we make sure that this wound or this scar is over and done with?
First of all, thanks for having me. What we saw in Bomas 1 year ago, to me, is how democracy gets built. And it's only important that Kenyans take each and every event and occurrence that happens in this country fairly and honestly to build democracy, our own democracy, not prescribed democracy by anyone. So whatever went down at Bomas, what Kenyans needs to do now is not to look at it as a story so that we just keep on pushing blame here and pushing blame in the other direction. It is about how do we now harness it. And we have another opportunity this week in Bomas to then speak to it. Kenyans have that opportunity to speak to that now, and speak to it honestly by building onto whatever experiences that the country has gone through over the years. So for me, what commissioners are saying, it is now past. We will never probably know who is saying the truth, because everyone is saying what they think they saw or went through. So this country should not be treated by lamentations. Let us deal with the situation that we saw in Bomas as building blocks, and then let's build our democracy, the Kenyan democracy.
The Kenyan democracy. Haman, many would say, with all these revelations coming months after the election, is it prudent then to have a commission of inquiry to get to know what exactly happened in Bomas? And if there were people, as alleged in the very many revelations, who wanted to interfere with the election, then have action taken against them? I mean, what we had in the Supreme Court was just challenging the presidential election, but we've not had a proper inquest or inquiry into indeed what happened.
You don't need to inquire to know what happened. We all know what happened at Bomas. Martin Olo has said it. A display of ineptitude, people who didn't know what they were doing. And on this, I fault our leaders, including the opposition. When a time comes to elect a commission, even if they are given a chance, look at the sort of people they put there. You can't even believe. I once said, when these people, the 4 were appointed, or whatever it was, I said, fine, these are good Kenyans. Some of them, I even know them, wonderful people, but they are not fit You can't consider such a people when you are constituting an electoral team that can decide the future of the country. Because elections can bring down a country. So I don't think you need to find out what happened. We already know. Secondly, in terms of the allegations of people wanting to take power, for heaven's sake, this is Africa. There is no way a sitting head of state can want to do things and it doesn't do it. If Uhuru wanted to mess this election, he would have messed it. So I don't believe the nonsense that some people were sent to Bomas to try and get power by force. They would have gotten it.
But
They had all the power.
according to the commission, they met a very steadfast commission.
Which commission? You can't. They
Wafula
can do
Chebukati,
anything.
Boya Mulu,
Forget
Professor
about it.
Gulie.
You know one thing about our elections, and hear me loud and clear, and I'm happy I'm with a lawyer here. It only takes the commission to say you are the president at Bomas, and everything is set rolling. That's all. Nothing else. You run to the Supreme Court, try this and this, but the guy declared will most likely at 99% remain the president. So I do not buy this nonsense that somebody tried to grab power at Bomas. They had better ways of doing it if they wanted.
If they wanted
What I could give some little thought to is the possibility of Raila being played, and those are just games to show them we are trying even very hard, but we have failed. That I can listen to. I'm not saying it happened. That I can create some little room in my mental to listen to. But the idea that government wanted to mess this election and they didn't, with all the instruments of power, and this is Africa, forget about it.
Perhaps that is to show how mature our democracy is. And
No,
even as we move to the
forget
other
about it. It's not true. It can't.
Don't even
Come
talk
on,
about,
come on.
It wouldn't work.
Don't talk about maturity. Maturity
It
is
wouldn't
work
work.
in
Not in
progress.
Africa.
We are not yet there.
Not in Africa.
And you see, democracy has a problem, Ibrahim. Democracy is very problematic. If you want to know that democracy is problematic, just look to the US right now. And look at Donald Trump. Look at everything happening in the US, and it will tell you democracy. They say, and I think it's Churchill who said that it's the worst form of democracy, but we've never known a better one. That said, what Arman is saying is that even that we can even talk about some of those machinations, that we can even say there was an attempt to interfere, is acknowledgement that our elections are open to manipulation. That's an acknowledgement. Because if we were trying, or if there was an attempt to do it, it means there was also other attempts other than what we've had. We know how the ballots were procured. We know how the IT system was, whatever. We know who the Venezuelans are. There was an attempt from the word go.
And I believe this story about the election of 2022 may really stay with us for long before it ends. But now let's look at what we have on the other papers. And we look at the Standard, and the Standard on its headline says, "This is our agenda." Why is it refusing to move? There it is. This is our agenda, peace talks. Whereas President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga have been the faces of the bipartisan talk, Kenyans from all walks of life are also having their say. This includes Marwa Kitayama, and the discussion we'll be having later. The committee is receiving memorandum that will be considered in their final report. Just to get some two quotes on the Standard, we have one from Irongo Houghton, who says that we call on the committee to remind the Attorney General and the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government of their legal obligation to gazette regulations for the Prevention of Torture Act and the National Coroner's Service Act, and set aside adequate funding for the establishment of the National Coroner's Service Secretariat and Council. Then there is also a quote there from Kalonzo Musyoka, who is one of the leaders of the National Dialogue Committee. People are saying this is a constitutional moment and they are Kenyans talking. Therefore, we will not shy away from receiving any memorandum, only that they will have to be interrogated. That we shall be getting into to just see what else we can dig out or squeeze out of that story. On the top deck of the Standard, why push for new counties will not be walk in the park. Kitayama, yes. Again, page 9 of the Standard on your story and why we are here. There is, of course, the story from Morocco that is also on the front page of the Daily Nation. Morocco quick toll at 2,000. And then Coco Gauff's rise in tennis. That is on sports, page 29 of the Standard. Quickly, let's have a look, because of time, at what the Taifa Leo is known to be having very interesting headlines. And Taifa Leo says, farasi wawili hasimu watangaza njama za kufyekana miguu. UDA ikieleza mpango madhubuti wa kupenya ngome za ODM. The headline says, ni bega kwa bega. Chama cha ODM kufanya uchaguzi Februari mwaka 2024 katika jaribio la kufikia UDA kwa umaarufu, na chama cha UDA chatangaza uchaguzi Disemba mwaka 2023 ili kudumisha umaarufu wake. Kivumbi, picha kamili ya kinyang'anyiro cha uchaguzi wa mwaka 2027 imeanza kujichora baada ya vyama maarufu zaidi vya UDA na Chungwa kutangaza tarehe za uchaguzi. And I think we want to get a reaction on this story, but let's first do a quick on this. On the paths, we have Malala aingia motoni kwa kutaka chama kimoja. Vijana wa Ford Kenya wapinga vikali agizo la katibu mkuu wa UDA kwa Kenya Kwanza. Vile vile majaribio wa mtihani wa KPSEA 2024. Wanafunzi wa gredi ya 6 wanajiandaa kwa tathmini ya kitaifa, na pia vita baridi vya Rigathi na Nyoro. All these stories I want comments on, especially on what is happening for the preparation all the political parties. And then there is that vita baridi vya Rigathi na Nyoro. Just to read for you, because you don't have a copy of the Taifa Leo, I believe, on what exactly that story is about. Pambano la kudhibiti siasa za Mlima Kenya sasa laendelea chini kwa chini baina ya naibu rais na mbunge wa Kiharu. Nani atashinda? But before we comment on that, there is that story we've seen on the Standard. I'll start with you, Kitayama, because you've had a chance to present a memoranda to the National Dialogue Committee. The Standard is speaking about what the people want. You see, there is what Raila Odinga and William Ruto wanted with their teams. But then again, what the people want. How much will it be accommodated, even with those calls that please bring your concerns?
That is exactly where the test is. That is how this country is going to be defined. And over the years, that has been the problem. Right? Over the years, that has been the problem. That Kenyans have been treated with satisfying the will or the wants of a certain people who are said to be big in politics and therefore having and holding sway. And therein get lost other voices. Other matters that are important are left unattended. And this is another opportunity, again, as I said earlier, that the two sides that are have quite a big following, carrying aspirations of two different sets of people. In the two different sets of people, also exist other people inside those sets that have other things that they want to talk about. And that is why I liked what the former Vice President said, that it may not be a constitutional moment, but it is a moment for Kenyans to talk. And even as Kenyans are talking, they're not just talking outside of what ails them or outside of what they want or how they want Kenya to be better. They're bringing all sorts of angles of what initially was said to be the 20% in the 2010 constitution that was never attended, or rather what that needed further deliberations upon. So straight to your question on counties, it's not going to be a walk in the park. My brother, nothing is ever a walk in the park. Even the elections that are just gone by, everybody believed that Azimio was going to win. I mean, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't a walk in the park.
We are coming to that conversation on counties shortly. It's about the dialogue and the call for people to submit their memoranda. Haman, it is not the first time that we are seeing such talks in the country. Many would ask then, what has come of previous talks? What has come of previous such moments when Kenyans would come to discuss matters of national importance, so that they now would believe that what we are having right now will actually bear fruits?
That's the question. And the answer is simple. We have been skirting around the main issues. So if people are not addressing the real issues, they will always come back to the same thing and the same point. And the issue for this country is a very simple issue. It's a political question. The political question is also a very simple thing. It's how come, with all our potential, we've not been able to make it? How come we are not a nation? You know, we are still struggling to be a nation. How come elections are never really what you can call elections? How come two communities want to dominate the country 60 years after independence, one after the other. I saw undertones from the deputy president saying, Kipchumba hapo hapo, tunajua hatuwezi kusema anajipanga hapo. Which is basically to say, by my own interpretation, that Gachagua is saying he'll be deputized by Murkomen, if my interpretation is right. Look at that kind of arrogance. Look at how dangerous it is for the country. So the reason why I will keep coming to the so-called committees and discussions and whatever is because we scatter around the main issue. We have to address the political question.
But how again,
come we are where we are?
Based on what you're raising, how again do you address such plans if indeed, like you've said, two communities leading the country, they would say tyranny of numbers. They'd say the majority have their way, the minority have their say. That is democracy. How do you address that?
It can't work that. It doesn't have to be that way. America would have been controlled by 2 or 3 states. But the architecture of their constitution is such that they forestalled that. They took care of that. Even as early as the 1980s, Moi knew it was dangerous and introduced the 25% rule in 5 out of the 8 former provinces. The framers of this current constitution attempted to address that same issue you are saying by bringing in 50% plus 1 vote and maintaining the 25% brought in by Moi. It means it is something we should be aware of and we should address. Otherwise, it may be the cause of our trouble in the future, and it has destroyed other countries.
Martin, as you react to this call by the National Dialogue Committee to bring memoranda, and then there is what the people want, as has been highlighted by the Standard, that this is our agenda. You may also want to take us across to that other story about the planned merger of parties within Kenya Kwanza. You saw the president and his team in Nyeri on Saturday, and they're all saying, twende katika chama kimoja. And this reminds us of what happened with the merger of Jubilee Party. I don't want to speak about what happened later. Perhaps a reaction on the National Dialogue Committee, and then you move us to this second story.
I think to quote the former Vice President Kalonzo well, he says that this is the constitutional moment. And therefore, any person or any groups that have a contribution or a memoranda, they are welcome. However, it will be subject to interrogation. The question is by who? And using what philosophy? That we can actually look at our constitution and ask whether it is serving us. It's okay. We can audit it. We can make some observations. The question is, how do we make the amendments? What philosophy drives us? The constitution we have today came to us from a fight and from an experience that we do not want. It came to us after Section 2A was inserted and abolished. It came to us after the single-party dictatorship. It came to us after we saw a lot of our institutions being wasted away. So there are certain things in this constitution that we want to defend. Indeed, there are certain things that you can say are basic structure in nature and that cannot be changed. But there are some that can be changed. The question is, what are we talking about? And later on we'll be having that conversation. But let's go to our politics. You know, one thing I like about President Ruto is that he speaks what he thinks. He believes in one major party. The only thing he has not told us that he admires the Communist Party. But he really is looking for a big vehicle. He's in a coalition called Kenya Kwanza, but that's it's nothing. He's busy with UDA. So he wants a big UDA. Anybody else who is around him is telling them, fold these other small outfits. So are we going to see one mega party? Certainly there is work towards that. What does that mean? It means that if you can't fold your party, we will walk over you. We will crush you as we go along. And look at what he did the other day in Western. He went and camped there. Did he go there through the speaker or through the prime cabinet secretary? No. He went there as the president of the country and as a top-notch politician and strategist. So he went, sat there and met the people directly. So that means that, yes, his party is likely to push his party ahead so that he can actually, make it a formidable party. That is a possibility. Let's not rule it away. Same to ODM. We see it is a political machine that keeps on reinventing itself. It is in Azimio, but is busy selling itself as ODM.
As ODM.
Yeah, as ODM.
But the thing with Kenya Kwanza is that UDA wants the merge of other parties into it. Ford Kenya, for instance, a party that has been in existence since 1991, to fold up to form UDA. Same party, same thing as the Democratic Party, led by, or that is associated by the Attorney with the Attorney General, to fold up and make up this party. Then what will that mean to our political space?
Let's say this, Ibrahim, and I want to say this without any fear of contradiction. We do not have political parties to speak about. We have political players. So Azimio, ODM is Raila, okay? Remove Raila from ODM, there's no ODM there. UDA is Ruto. In fact, UDA has never had any elections. Jubilee sat throughout, they had no elections before. So if you look at it, we have no political parties that conform to what the Political Parties Act would say. So Jubilee came and went, it was never a serious political party. URP came and went, it never did elections. ODM tries to do elections, men in black come, kick the boxes. So we generally have outfits that can be associated with individuals, not political parties.
We need to take a break, and after the break I'll start with you, Marwa, because you are a member of Kenya Kwanza.
Yes.
And it's creating heat in your coalition. You're seeing Vijana Ford Kenya wanakataa. You're also seeing, we had the party leader, ANC, the Lamu governor, saying that no, we are not folding up our party. So it's really creating heat, and the fate of your coalition is really on the balance here. But that is after the break. And once we are done with those particular stories, we get to our topic of the day, just to formally introduce our guests today for the conversation. The conversation is more counties pushing boundaries, calls for more devolved units, real need or political greed. That conversation we'll be having with Marwa Kitayama, the Member of Parliament, Kuria East, amongst the 26 members of Parliament pushing for additional counties. Herman Manyora, political analyst, experience he brings here on this particular conversation, as well as Martin Olowo, advocate of the High Court of Kenya, as well as political commentator in the country as well. He will be telling us if this is an exercise in futility and what exactly should be cured if the issue is getting resources to Mashinani. My name is Ibrahim Karanja. AM Live continues after this break.
When you're finally released from pain. That moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
With Glovo unaweza order chochote na ukipata una celebrate na body yako yote. Because your tasty grilled chicken ikifika, weekend inaanza. Ingredients are your favorite recipe just in time. Na wakati keki inafika ndio sherehe inaanza. Because to get anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything unataka na we track minute by minute mpaka ikufikie. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
In your paper this week, East Africa in new push to keep out mitumba imports. Uganda, Kenya are taking after Rwanda, which effected the ban, a decision fraught with political and economic repercussions. Ruto calls out part of judiciary for unending stay orders, plus our opinion leaders. A fenced-off French zone? It's no wonder deposed Bongo wanted to be East African. Charles Onyango Obo. Cut out the worship. Democratic leaders are not sacred. LC Eakuze. Niger, the Gabon. Is the much needed second liberation here? Generali Ulimwengu. Magazine. Kings of Kinshasa dance halls. Fally Ipupa, and Ferre Gola. For these and more stories, get your copy of The East African.
Who would have thought that Miss Irene is actually worse than I thought she was? She didn't even tell her father about her wedding. What's the matter? Don't you like it?
It's very cute. Thank you very much.
Will you look at this? What a nice blender. Every time we use this blender to make juices, we'll be reminded of you.
What was that?
It's Tiburcio. He's back here from the hospital.
He's out of the hospital? Can he talk properly now, Lala?
He can't, ma'am.
It's impossible for Tiburcio to speak in his current state. And so the only thing I need to make sure of is that Irene never discovers that Natalia Garcia is her daughter.
Head over heels.
Are you ready for a challenge that will change your life? Introducing #Nation Scholarship Challenge. We all know that getting an education can be tough, but we also know that a scholarship can make a huge difference. That's why Nation Media Group and Goodwill are giving you the chance to win 80,000 Kenya shillings. All you need to do is to post a video telling us why you want this scholarship and how it will help you achieve your goals. Don't forget to use the #Nation Scholarship in your post. It's super easy, and by taking part, you'll be part of a global community of people who are all working towards their goals. So if you're thinking about pursuing higher education or have big career aspirations, this is your chance to take a step forward. Don't wait too long. Complete your Goodwill profile and share your story with us now.
From Benfica to Atletico Madrid to Chelsea to Barcelona, Joao Felix has not lacked opportunities at big clubs. Indeed, his raw talent and potential has generated those opportunities without always making the most of them. Quite clearly, now is the time for Joao Felix to make those opportunities count.
Daring Abroad makes me dare. It's the only show of its kind in the world. And now, it's bigger.
And even more entertaining and informative than before.
Hapa kunaitwa Kakoe na inatubaba sana.
From London to Jersey Island.
Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo to the scenic features of Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
And many more places abroad and at home.
I watch Daring Abroad. I like the stories which people bring.
Daring Abroad every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. with repeats every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. on NTV.
All right, you're watching M Live with me, Ibrahim Karanja. Remember, you can engage us in this conversation through our social media platforms at NTV Kenya across all platforms, or Ibrahim Karanja on Facebook, at Karanja_Ibra on Twitter, and we shall be sampling some of your comments. We want to get into a conversation, but before that, I want to give a very, very brief chance to my panelists to comment on that story on Taifa Leo, page 3, Vita Baridi via Rigathi na Nyoro. Apparently, Ndindi Nyoro has avoided all functions, Martin, all functions that the Deputy President has spearheaded in Central Kenya. He only attends what President Ruto is leading. And people are saying, and there was that comment in February this year from the Muranga Senator Joe Nyoto, who said it's time Muranga produced a president, because Kiambu has produced 2 presidents, Nyeri has produced 1, and the Deputy President currently is from Nyeri. So sort of putting the 2 in a head-to-head. What does that tell you?
Definitely there is disquiet within the mountain. but there is also an attempt by the Deputy President to galvanize the mountain. So that attempt to galvanize and that disquiet is brewing around certain axes. And one axis is, of course, the Ndindi Nyoro one. Remember that Ndindi Nyoro didn't really support Gachagua as the possible number 2. He preferred Kindiki, and so that is also historical. And let's also face it that the Deputy President isn't the darling of many people, especially the way he employs his gift of the tongue. And so sometimes people like Ndindi Nyoro and others feel a little distanced from him. So yes, there is that disquiet. But again, within the mountain, there is even that disquiet around the issue of, okay, Kiambu has had it twice, Nyeri has had it once. Again, Nyeri wants a piece of it. Just like in the country, you can say, but Rift Valley has had it once, now they are having it twice. So these are going to be conversations that later on, when we begin to have these real political conversations around counties, we will see them playing out, because the minorities, or indeed majoritarianism, is playing out to its own detriment. That when the majority play it against the minority, there are certain voices that come out. So, Maranga, you know, you'd say it's perhaps in terms of wealth, in terms of education, and in terms of exposure, Maranga is the Kianos, and you're looking at the Matibas, and you're looking at, but it has not produced somebody at that level. And so that is a point they want to make. But again, do Kenyans want a president from a region, or they want a president who can serve them in all? Those are issues to talk about.
Marwa, yes. The two leaders are from your coalition. You sit with Ndindi in the same house, National Assembly. The Deputy President is your deputy party leader. They're now head to head.
As it should be in any vibrant, democracy, I think that is normal. And if you look at the age difference between the two, I think also one would be, forgiven to imagine that, one is approaching, a good age, and another one is coming up. So that space could also as well remind us, when there was the clamor for multipartyism. You remember the late Mzee Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and his son, in Thika. And I don't know why all this has to happen around there. But I think it is also looking at now, looking at 2027, looking at the future. And the two are clearly, of course, attending to the realities of the next elections that are ahead of us. But, from the coalition point, we have not seen that. It hasn't been brought to our attention in a manner that now gives me to speak from a position of the coalition.
Well, they spoke this fire.
I can only speak from my observation that, yes, there is, looking at their age differences, what is going on is what needs to happen, because this country must create succession. And successions are done exactly that way. Earlier on, if you allow me, Professor Manyora here did allude to Murkomen and, maneno ya kujipanga and all that. I think, and you remember President Moi did bring up President Uhuru Kenyatta. I think this is an age succession thing. It's a talk. It's what needs to happen now. Yes.
Is it too hot in your coalition? You are looking to fold up parties, but the big boys are saying no, you're not folding up.
The issue of folding parties has also not been formally and officially been brought to our attention as a coalition. But this is my thinking. I don't think it helps this country to fold parties to make one big. Look at us. We were in Jubilee. We were bundled there, and by the same kind of architecture. And at the end of it all, everybody was struggling to run out of Jubilee. Can you imagine if there was nowhere else to go? So I think my community, we don't vote parties. We vote for individuals. We believed in William Ruto. We voted for him. All right. So we sold William Ruto more than we sold UDA. If tomorrow he moves to some other party called Karanja something something, we will go there because that is him. That's him we are following.
Maybe
and
that's
for
an
me,
idea
the
to
same.
consider.
I started with ODM Kenya. I moved to Wiper and then URP, and I got elected in Jubilee last parliament and this parliament. I'm in UDA. People are following me for who I am, not for the party.
Not for the party.
So this party thing.
Haman, and both Ndindi and Gachagua were actually elected for the very first time during in the same election. That is the 2017 election. That's when Rigathi was elected for Madeira and Ndindi first time elected for Kiharu. So I would call them age mates politically, only that Rigathi Gachagua has gone to the level of being deputy president. This fight, what do you make out of it?
You're talking of
the administrator.
Retired him.
He says he dislodged him from the
Nelson
region.
Marwa.
He says he dislodged Marwa from the region, but story for another day.
So, talking of age, you know, Gachagua is selling himself as a young person and saying Raila is too old and must just go back to Bondo. You know, sometimes people forget that the internet, as they say, doesn't forget. Assuming he runs for office, at some point he will be in State House at Raila's age. So what does he want Kenyans to tell him? Please, you are too old, just vacate State House and go home. Because the guy is 58 years. In 10 years' time, he will be 68. And in the course of his presidency, it will be Raila's age. And you can never know, an election can even take a year or two to be resolved as a dispute in the Supreme Court. And a by-election, and another election, they call them reruns or what? You know, another note, there's a name they give. If the Supreme Court nullifies an election, you must hold another election in 60 days. There's no end to how,
a fresh election, actually.
how long that can happen. It can take 2-3 years. And then Gachagua will be Raila's age and is wanting to go for it again. You tell him, please remind him, you said at this age somebody is too old to be president. Anyway, that's beside the point. The point here is there is obviously something happening between the two politicians. And that is normal, like Marwa says. It's quite normal. This is politics. People can't be clapping and singing hymns together all the day. There will be those who will differ with others, those who will be ambitious. Somebody will look at your seat and say, and believe he's the one who should sit on that seat. That's normal. But what is the reason for this? The reason for this is that nobody has so far succeeded Uhuru Kenyatta. And therefore there's a sort of vacuum. And therefore Ndindi could be looking, Ndindi Nyoro could be looking around, and he might be feeling and thinking that surely he's the right person to succeed Uhuru Kenyatta as a community leader. And this can happen. You know how politics works. And that's why I've been advising my friend Rigathi Gachagua, stop attacking Uhuru Kenyatta. It will only take the support of people like Uhuru Kenyatta to pop up Ndindi Nyoro. And you are gone. Also remember, there are mamas on the mountain. The people on the mountain are as unhappy as other Kenyans about what is going on with the cost of living and other things. But so far they haven't deserted William Ruto. If anybody says that, they are wrong. They are still with William Ruto. But there are mamas to that, to the effect that things are not working well. It will not surprise me if the Mount Kenya community produced a presidential candidate in 2027. It will not surprise me. And that candidate can as well be Ndindi Nyoro or somebody outside Kenya Kwanza. So when you look at it that way, then you understand why Ndindi Nyoro is placing himself somewhere. In line of this succession, he can be a serious person. And I've always thought what Ndindi Nyoro will need to do now is just to drop activism. If he drops activism and takes himself to the next level of a leader, he'll be the man to beat from Mount Kenya.
He'll be the man to beat from Mount Kenya. And at that point, I want us to, I know Martin wants to comment, but allow me not to give that opportunity so we also don't eat much into the time for our conversation. And the conversation, just to set pace for it, is that 26 members of parliament want 11 new counties added to the existing 47, making it a total of 58 counties. The MPs argue that the provision of the initial 47 devolved units was not final, but a basis for starting a new dispensation pending a more deliberate delimitation process. They They say that the adoption of 47 counties has resulted in economic, social, and political marginalization of some parts of the country. And just to set the foundation, let's have what they said when they had a press conference after submitting a memoranda to the National Dialogue Committee.
Equal access to political processes, restricted access to resources, and inadequate service delivery, as well as untimely undermining the promotion of national unity and inclusivity. In light of these considerations, we urge the National Dialogue Committee to support the proposal to delineate 10 additional counties of Kuria, Teso, Mount Elgon, East Pokot, Mwingi, Gucha, Suba, Ijara, Nakuru West, and Wajir South, and there is another one coming, Nyambene, as means of to address these critical constitutional matters.
Marwa, from the 10 that you've mentioned and the 11th one that Mpuru Waburi is pushing into the list, I've seen something that suggests that you've actually carved out what these counties would be. For instance, in my home county of Nakuru, you're suggesting Nakuru West, which will comprise of Njoro, Rongai, Kuresoi. In Baringo, our neighboring county, there is a proposal to have East Pokot County that will eat into West Pokot and have Tiati. This carving out looks like some ethnic carving out of counties and not really to set out marginalization. So tell us, first of all, how did we get into this 11 and the carving out of the counties?
Probably where we should start is how did we get to 47? You know, that then starts the conversation fairly. I've always given this history so that it gives context to why Kenyans need to understand what we are doing. This country was just Kenya. Actually, it was just open space. You know, the colonial people came and then they determined that this is Kenya. And after that, it went on and, you know, for purposes of their managing or mismanaging this country, they decided to create boundaries. They probably started with provinces and then, or maybe the other way around, districts, locations, etc. They were all carved along ethnic lines for their own purposes. And as Kenya moved on, we found ourselves in a scenario where the more we were maturing as a country, the more people had a voice, and therefore they felt this is not working, or this is not, this is how it be done better. So spaces that were big as divisions ended up becoming locations, I mean districts, and continued all the way until we were able to get the districts that were there at that time that the Constitution 2010 was happening. At that time, there were around 174. But that conversation was canvassed in Kilifi and all these other places. I think Wakili here will be able to give us even a better history. But in the process of trying to get solutions for marginalization, removing ourselves from the centralized system that was existing at that time, the country decided that, okay, let us then have 3 layers of government in terms of devolution. There was supposed to be a first tier, which is national, and then there was supposed to be regional, and then there was supposed to be counties. But again, because of push and pull and give and take, it was decided, okay, now let's just have 2 tiers only. That was national government and county governments. And for the county governments, again, it was seen or thought at that time that, oh, you know, 74 is too many. Let's reduce these ones. As we are reducing these ones, remember there were already districts existing at that time that were 74. So as a give and take, again, you know, the drafters of the Constitution then decided, okay, this is too big. Can we use a cap? And in that cap, somebody, a clever person somewhere said, let's do the districts that were existing by gazetted by 1992 December. And that is how 47 came about. Now, please remember that already there were others that were existing. So already that is an injustice. You know, my friend Wakili here will tell you, are people who have already enjoyed a right, when you deny that right of them, it becomes an injustice and it becomes a problem. So that is probably where we got it wrong, because already all these counties we are proposing were existing as districts at the time of making this Constitution 2010. So that is exactly where we start from. Now, when you say they are appearing to be tribal,
carved out in an ethnic way,
it is not our mistake. That is how that's what we inherited at independence. It's also God-given. You know, there are people will be living in these areas. It becomes natural. There is a sub-location. It is about a people, a clan. It is about a location. It is again another people, or distinct boundaries according to how we are living. It goes all the way into a country. You know, if this conversation was to get into the international level, would be saying, no. Why are Kenyans saying that they are Kenyans? So this thing of ethnicity, it is an inheritance that actually the Constitution, if you read the preamble, gives us, asks us to be proud of. And indeed we are. So it is a community of nations coming together to become better. So it starts by being community of nations within a county, community of nations within that county, several counties, becoming a country called Kenya.
Martin, is this conversation justified?
Not at all. Not at all. And here is why. If it is not working, then let us understand how to fix it. What Mheshimiwa is saying is that devolution is not working. But what he's proposing is more of units, and that's the problem. Number one, devolution. Number one, not more devolution, more of units. Number one, the relationship between the national government and counties is bad. Bad from every perspective, including good faith in operationalizing counties. The Office of Control of Budget, the Office of the Treasury and others are deliberately working to frustrate counties from accessing resources in time and therefore to deliver. To say that you need more of those units is to say that you need more people to suffer or more units to suffer, because if the system remains the same at the national level, then we're going to continue the same thing. Number one. Number two, there was supposed to be, and there is every intention in this current constitution for devolution to go beyond the headquarters. In other words, we should be looking at how to deepen devolution within the respective counties, so that if you go to Migori, you ask, how have we further devolved to make sure that the areas of Kuria and Suba and others are sorted out? Now, that is not happening. So we need more of that. But the third issue is this, and Mheshimiwa is here. They have said that they have NGAF, National Government, whatever fund. The same argument for NGAF is that we have to have that resource down at the constituency level in order for us to equalize development. No problem. In the same manner, there is a push for ward development funds coming out of, again, the county resources that are allocated. Again, that is another form of decentralization, devolution, if you like. The point I'm making is that we haven't tested this system well enough, haven't focused on why services are not being delivered. To add other units may be a good political thing to do, but it will not necessarily result to efficiencies. But the last one which I want to add on this table is that this is not the last of this kind of a conversation if we go into this route. On this table, I was saying this morning, once Herman Manyora arrived, is that I have two minorities here who can claim marginalization. When you go to Luyaland or Vihiga, where this Herman comes from, he's a Tiriki. Now, Tiriki is a few in Vihiga. Yes. And in Vihiga, there are Banyores, there are few. But the Maragolis are many. Very soon we shall hear Banyore is wanting their county, Tiriki is wanting their county, and Maragoli is wanting their county. We can't run our country on the basis of fears and the basis of solutions that don't work. What we need to do is to accept that marginalization is a problem. Injustice done to any Kenyan is injustice to all of us, and let's address those injustices. For now, it might be it might be good to think, politically correct to think, that what we need are more counties. Politically, it makes sense because you see, for UDA and Kenya Kwanza or ODM, UDA and ODM right now, with these conversations, anything will go. That is the problem. Are we now going to kowtow to short-term solutions to a long-term problem? When Mheshimiwa was talking, when we started independence, the same fears were here, and that's how Majimbo came about. And that's why those who are in KADU really wanted to make sure that the majority don't overrun them. What happened? They kept on amending, and eventually Majimbo died. Later on, we had this refocus for rural development. Why? Because we felt that we were not going down to the people. This focus never worked. Then what happened? Provincial administration was strengthened. Then what happened? We changed it. And now we got ourselves to the counties. Again, we are not happy with it. We want more and more and more. We will not address our problems. So we will not address our problems. Marginalization by majority will remain. Even when you go now to Kuria, as my brother is, there are clans there. And some clans are dominating other clans. So hata huko kutaendelea kuwa na mashida.
Haman, I want us to talk about the formula because Kitayama has listed about 10 counties, 10 extra counties. Then there is, we'll speak about it, Nyambene, which is an additional, but that is coming from Mpuru Waburi. But the formula to use, if we were to add counties, Martin is saying that that is not even a conversation we should be having, that what we have is enough. That is what Senator Ledama Olekina on this tweet says, 47 counties is more than we need. Let us now focus on developing them. Other quarters may come and say, then if indeed the conversation is to have more counties, let us use the formula of numbers. They're talking about 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. In fact, there is a conversation from Kiambu County to have Thika County. Then where will this lead us?
You know, to ask me for the formula, I will not give you. But let me take you back to 1 or 2 years after independence. I think about a year or 2 after independence. People rushed to President Jomo Kenyatta and told him, Mzee, hii kitu imeenda, serikali imeenda. Say, what? Who's taking my government? Say, look here, man. There are people in the country flying presidential flags. Moi is in Rift Valley with a flag. And that's how the fear of Majimbo was planted in us. And that takes us to Naivasha. And I like the introduction given by my colleague here from Korea East. And I also don't agree with Martin Olo that we don't need this conversation. This is a conversation we need. And for me, this conversation will take us where we should rightly be, which is Bomas. People sat in Bomas for a long period of time. And we were agreed we needed regional governments. We are not even reinventing the wheel. This is something that happens across the world. Anytime people decide to devolve some sort of federalism, whatever, at whatever level, however conceived, there are always basic minimums. America would be divided into 50 states, for example. Okay, but they have 50 states. Look at their population, look at GDP, look at size. Nigeria, how many regions? You know, you can go on and on. And it was agreed we needed to have regions along the lines of what other people have done, but we were basing ourselves on the 8 provinces we had. 7 provinces and the special province of Nairobi. And then we said, well, 8 may also be too little. Let's also consider certain areas like Nyanza, where Kisii and Kuria look distinct enough to have their own region. And Rift Valley looks too big and too diverse. Let's give them an extra 2 or 3. And the Kamba in Eastern can be on their own. So that drove us to around 12, 14. And the general argument was about 14 or so. Now, because of that demon created shortly after independence, when people rushed to Kenyatta, Bomas became a problem. And a compromise was reached also to sort out the issue of those who were rooting for parliamentary system of government, the ODM side, and those who are rooting for a centralized presidential system. So this is a compromise, and I agree with those who are saying it wasn't quite based on solid facts, so that it is cast on stone. No, it is something we can have a conversation around. And I invite this conversation. I invite this conversation because it should ultimately lead us back to Bomas so that we have strong, viable regional governments without that fear and demon of Majimbo. Strong, viable regional governments. Under these regional governments would then have the third tier of counties. And when we have that, we can then now have a conversation on how many counties under the regions would we have. And I can see a situation where we will go beyond the current 47. When that time comes, we will look for the criteria. And the criteria, a set of criteria we'll be using, will be flexible enough for us to make amends maybe once or twice before we settle.
All right.
Because if we don't do that, certainly there is no stopping, like Adam says, and then like Martin says, there is no stopping. Because this is based on ethnicity. Ethnicity is not language. Ethnicity is not tribe. Ethnicity is something that puts people together. Once we are through with the tribe, defining what a county shall be, as Olo correctly puts it, we could now move to clan. Once we are through with the clan and we are in the Kenya of 2050, it could be on the basis of anything else, including things I don't want to mention on this show.
All right. And so that I give you time to mention those things, we need to take a break so that you mention them when we are on a break. But when we come back, Marwa, you have mentioned a couple of things that is making you push for these counties. It include economic marginalization, social marginalization, political marginalization, cultural marginalization, linguistic marginalization, graphical marginalization, and so many other reasons, which we will be breaking down, and also the way to this. Do we need a referendum if this is the way we needed to go? We have a wakili here, we have a lawmaker here, so this we shall be breaking down, but we take a break on AM Live. We come back and delve deeper into this conversation.
Benefits of ordering with Glovo. Glovo allows you to order anything you want at the comfort and convenience of your home. Craving fried chicken or pilau or pizza? Easy and simple. Order on Glovo today. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes. With Glovo you order anything unataka, and when you get it una celebrate because kukuchoma imefika, na wakati keki inafika ndio sherehe inaanza. Order Glovo, will deliver in minutes.
Interior Design Principle. Acquaint yourself with several different styles, including what design trends are popular right now, to get a taste of what styles and decorating ideas you like. Royal Paints ensures the highest quality standards for your satisfaction. So why wait? Experience the royal treatment for your home today. Visit your nearest hardware store and ask for Royal Paints. Royal Paints makes your life royal.
Get ready to tantalize your taste buds and embark on a culinary journey with Pishi Bomba, the ultimate cooking show that brings the flavors of the world right into your living room. Tune in this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. with me, Claire Karatu, for a mouth-watering adventure. Pishi Bomba. Cook, eat, enjoy.
Pishi Bomba in association with Ajab Home Baking Flour.
Enjoy cooking your favorite meals with Ajab and freestyle your way to deliciousness. It's easy to knead, easy to roll, and quick to prepare. Ajab Home Baking Flour, the flour that does more.
In every corner of Africa, leaders rise. From corporate pioneers to sports champions, innovative minds, and creative souls. You are the leaders of tomorrow, and we want to celebrate you. Are you a leader in your pack? Nominate yourself or someone you know for this year's Top 40 Under 40 and be part of the movement. Visit www.top40.bdafrica.com to submit your nomination.
Welcome back to AM Live. We are continuing with that conversation on the clamor to have additional counties. Already a memorandum before the National Dialogue Committee taken by a caucus of about 26 members of parliament. I have their chairperson with me, that is Honorable Marwa Kitayama. And Marwa, you spoke about various issues that you say are what is leading you to push for new counties. Yes. You are saying economic marginalization, social marginalization. Perhaps you want to give us all these reasons so that our viewer understands where you are coming from. Okay. Why, for instance, you think the people of Teso should have their own county in Busia, yet for the past 10 years, the governor of Busia has been at Teso. Yes. What exactly do you mean with this?
Kenya, we are in the system that we are in because Kenyans felt that the central government wasn't working. You know, centralized government wasn't working. And decisions and resources were being made and dished out from Nairobi, and it depended on who you knew. So there was an element of tokenism and all. So Kenyans said, no, this is not what we want. We want our money to go down, and that hence devolution. Unfortunately, most of the devolved units, okay, there are some that are homogeneous in their ethnicity, they are homogeneous in their composition, in geographical composition, etc. And they may not be having this challenge that we are bringing about. But there are some that without the design of the constitution, they find themselves in that situation, and therefore the same problems that Kenyans felt as a people at the national level before devolution, they're now finding the same now at county level. And there are few counties, those that we are talking about, that feel that. And you'll be surprised, even a county like Kitui, the reason for why Mwingi is talking, they want to have their own county, they feel marginalized within their, and they're speaking the same language. So the important thing here is that when the very objects, the very reasons why we had devolution, and I liked what Martin said earlier on, is that we should have had further. We should be making devolution work even further by taking it even further down to the further down to the grassroots. Now, since that is not happening, and I want to ask you to and welcome you to think like all of us are thinking. 47 counties, not all of them have issues. Only around 10, 11 that now people are feeling like, now here there's something. That means we got it right. Devolution works. It's a good thing. We've started well. All we need to do is now, okay, now let's listen to these others. What are they saying? And if indeed they are saying something that Kenyans can assist them to sort, then it becomes a good thing. We will have further devolution. And then that doesn't mean that we don't do what Martina said. We need to then go back and say, now you people of Kuria, you people of Teso, you new counties, do what you've been saying. Don't cry that you are having problems in the counties you are in now, and then you are not practicing that. Then we institutionalize a system that ensures that everybody feels that they are fairly treated. Everybody feels that they fairly belong. And also, we deal with that issue as enumerated there, political marginalization, all right, which which actually is the biggest problem, because all politics is about resource mobilization, resource sharing, and resource nganganiering, if there is such an English word. So, you know, so in short, scientists, professionals may have a solution to all these other forms of marginalization. But when it comes to the political marginalization, it can only be treated by an additional county from where we sit. And we are not saying that any other person suffers. What we are saying is that where we are, all right, where we are, can we make it better? For example, Migori County. If we made and succeeded in getting a Kuria County, then that region becomes better. Homa Bay County, if Suba County happened there, then Homa Bay becomes better, and Gucha the same, and then the entire Nyanza becomes better.
I'm wondering, shouldn't then the conversation be about making the existing systems work instead of adding other counties?
That is,
you can make Migori better by ensuring that the people of the new county that is being carved out are actually benefiting from the system that we currently have in place.
That is now what exactly is not happening. The minute you leave the decision makers, who are the majority in many instances, to run the show, they don't give you that opportunity, and hence this conversation.
Martin.
Now, you need to sort. What you're proposing is actually good, and it can work, but that can only sort all these other forms of marginalization, except political marginalization. That would not be sorted by just saying, let's make it better. How, for example, we are very, very tribal in our elections. How will you make it possible for Akuria to become governor, and yet they're we are 380,000 people against 840,000 people from the other ethnic
communities? Again, I'll come to you. Again, I'll come to you and we'll challenge you with the situation of Busia, because Martin is saying political marginalization. How will you make Akuria become governor in Migori if you do not? They don't have their own county. Busia has had this. The pioneer governor of Busia was from Teso, which is a minority community.
Yeah. And yet, the entire Busia remained marginalized. The entire, forget about Teso, the entire Busia. I mean, people have nothing good to say about Ojamong's governorship. The leadership problems we have in this country will not be solved by laws and additional institutions. Indeed, the lack of consensus that generally we have across the country, or even when we have consensus, the fact that consensus doesn't work will not be solved by additional units and so on. We will still have those problems. We must get the root causes. There is something that happens in this country that we all need to learn from. When you go to Northeastern, generally, leadership is settled in very different ways. By the time candidates are presenting themselves,
negotiated democracy.
Things have happened, and they get leaders, and they have no problem. Of course, they still kick them out, and there are other issues. But generally, there is a way in which clans sit. They now say, now, this is our turn now. And they actually produce a leader, and that leader comes and gets the space. When you go to Migori, there's always been a conversation that when a governor is coming from this side, we need a deputy from that side. The question is, does it help improve things? Similarly, if you go to Busia even now, that Otoma is the governor, their deputy comes from Teso. So there is always an attempt to say, let's have the face of the county. But what is the main ingredient of our politics? That even when you are sitting there as a deputy governor, you are still feeling marginalized, and your people are still feeling marginalized. Now, we must go back to our own. There are things we can't legislate. Acting in good faith, being faithful, being honest, and being what we cannot legislate these things. The reason why this country is where it is because we live a lie. We are tribal, but we say we are not. When we go down to the clans, those counties, we are even clan, we have clans. What I'm not putting on this table is Kakamega. Kakamega is so big, it has about 12 constituencies. When you go there, there's a discussion about the south and the north. People feeling that the people of the south are dominating us. So those are things that mean that if people are not seeing themselves being served across, it matters not whether they're one language speaking or of different types. It's just that they are not feeling inclusive. So even though we have said in our constitution that we need to be inclusive, we need to be united in our diversity, the truth is that when it comes to the test of it, it's not working. So I want to hear what Mheshimiwa and others are saying about adding the units, and indeed even the reasons, but I want to suggest that we are not scratching the issue. We are not dealing with the issue. We are not dealing with the cancerous cells, because they will still mutate.
We need to get to the root cause. Yeah. And Haman, as I come to you, there is this tweet that came from Dr. Boni Halwale, the Senator of Kakamega. And Kitayama, this should show you that your push is actually evoking conversations, a national discourse. And Boni Halwale says, in fact, current counties ought to be, if Jackie can give us, yes, thank you, Jackie. Current counties ought to be merged to create 10 viable economic units. 62 senators comprising 20 elected by universal suffrage, man and woman per county, to be head and deputy head of county delegations, plus 42, each representing our diverse ethnic communities, to be elected by respective county MCAs. Dr. Boni goes to say that the 10 should be Western, Nyanza, North Rift, South Rift, Nairobi, Upper Eastern, Lower Eastern, Northeastern, Coast and Central. Haman.
Listening to Martin talk about there's no need for laws and legislation reminds me of Otto von Bismarck, who said that the issues of the day will be sorted out not by empty talk in Parliament, but by blood and iron. I thought he was going there, that we should fight to sort out these issues.
No.
That's why I said this is a conversation we need to have. And you can see there are good ideas coming out. One, Boni is saying, let's go back to original Bomas and talk about strong, viable units. They cannot be 47 by any stretch of imagination. Okay? Since we will have to start somewhere, you can see it's also basing on the old provinces with a literal calibration.
Yeah.
You see? And then, again, he agrees with my thinking that under those regional governments, we then have what we are now calling counties. We may, according to him, now re-engineer those counties to 42, not just the number, but how we arrive at them. He's basing himself on the 42 so-called tribes. But again, as Martin will remind him, when you begin talking of tribes, and tribes are becoming with the benefits of a county, other clans will emerge and say, we are not clans. No. We are quite distinct. It has happened in this country. The Suba came from nowhere with Moi, and we knew there were different people. The Mbere came, and Moi told them, the Daraka, and so on. So the 42 may actually, once people realize it is coming with something, the 42 could as well become 60, like I've said. But it's a good conversation. But the centerpiece of this conversation, according to me, ought to be the realization and the acceptance that we need strong, viable regional governments. Governors at that level, if you have, say, 12 or 10 according to Boni, or 14 according to Bomas, they will be powerful people. And going forward, anybody wanting to be president of this country will not come outside those. It will always be a former governor or a serving governor. To that extent, these individuals will not pamper to the wishes of the executive or the president, because they will be big enough to want big things. And therefore, the president will not snap a finger and they go the way our governors are now going for development. So I strongly urge Kenyans to embrace this conversation. This is a good conversation.
And off the air, I told Mheshimiwa here that this conversation must also advance to the executive. Because you can't restructure and achieve without restructuring the executive. And if you go that conversation, then we go the full hog on this constitution. Because whatever we do, whether it's regional, because right now we don't have regional. If you want to create regional, you're going to go back to the constitutional structure. We must reinvent it. I want to suggest that yes, we're in a constitutional moment, but the reasons may not be all, all on the table, or we are not agreed. Maybe it's good to push what we're pushing. It's good to hear what others are bringing about, but it's good to give us time again. Whether we go back to Bomas, whether, of course, there are two places we shouldn't go back to: Naivasha and Kilifi. But Bomas we should.
Bomas we should. And if indeed Maro, if we go this direction, then Kenyans are concerned about two things. One, about the financial baggage of having extra counties, and two, the financial baggage of having a referendum. And just to also warn you on the route that you've taken, because you've already marked the counties and even sort of marked where they will be. One thing that knocked out the BBI was because it attempted to define where the 70 extra constituencies will be. That is exactly what you're doing.
Now, two things. That's exactly not what I'm doing. All right? The Constitution says that Parliament will create a special committee, select committee, that is going to look into the boundaries. So we have just identified the general geographical areas, and we have also picked, because the same constitution says that a county there should be 2 constituencies. So we've said within that, that is the general area. Now this committee is going to find how and mark the boundaries, because that is not the work that I could do. That is one. 2, the issue of resources. I really want Kenyans to work with us on this one. We have said that there'll be no additional costs apart from having an additional probably senator and a women representative of that particular county. Our proposal says this, that if, for example, let me take my county, for example, Migori County. We get about 9 billion shillings every financial year, revenue share. And we've said that our population is about 30%. 27%, 30%. So if you use 30% for ease mathematics, then we are saying that there'd be pro rata, 30% of 9 billion is what? 3 billion shillings.
6.9. I
want to tell you something. When the entire Kuria was Kehancha Municipal Council. And if you go to your records, you'll find that apart from Nyambene, which was almost #1 all the time, not Nyambene, they are the one that is in Embu. It was called Runyenjes. Apart from Runyenjes, who was almost #1 every time in terms of revenue collection and use of the same, Kehancha Municipal Council was always #2, #3, #2, #3. Now as we speak, 2016, 2017, the internal revenue collection that happened within that region constituted 41% of the entire Migori County revenue collection. So if people are able to demonstrate that they can handle their resources, you remember that time it was very little resources, that we were able to run our matters and have, in fact, the vehicles that started Migori County, including the money that we started at 60 million shillings, is what was found in Kehancha Municipal Council. So the demonstration here is that Kenyans are not being burdened. Additionally, we are the same amount of money going in, for example, Gucha. Kisii gets around probably 10 billion, 11, 12 billion. If Gucha is about maybe 3/4, whatever the ratio will be, pro rata, the same amount of money is split to the new county. And everybody, we are looking for fairness, isn't it? So that we have to disabuse and ask Kenyans, let's walk this journey, not by putting roadblocks. Let's have everybody come in and talk. Now, let me finish. You earlier on said something about referendum. That's not going to, that's not how if you read the report of the Committee of Experts, which is basically where we based the 2010 decisions. And in fact, in that report, it says that the devolution, the chapter 4, devolution was the most contentious discussion. And that is why they wrote there and said provisionally.
we are adapting. They recommended provisionally to adapt the 47 counties that were, districts that were gazetted by 1992. Therefore, and even in their own writing, and I need you to go there and look for it, I think it will be 4.6, the report on chapter 4, subsection 6, I think. And they're saying that because of the contentious nature of this discussion, provisionally, we have adapted 47, but giving an opportunity that later on there will be now a conversation. And in fact, they specify around 10 years. So this is the right time to have this discussion. Devolution is here with us. It has worked. It is working. But it needs to be made better. And there's nothing wrong in making something good better, because this country just needs to be better every day. Otherwise, we have no business being alive and being leaders.
Martin, I was speaking to the former governor of Baringo yesterday, Stanley Kiptis, and I asked him this very question, and he said it's going to cure one thing. It will cure human resource challenges in terms of it will provide opportunities to the people in the new county. But in terms of resources, it may not cure it. In terms of trickling down resources, he in fact says that funds should follow functions, which has not happened. Do you agree with the governor?
Absolutely. And again, I hear what Mheshimiwa is saying. The only thing that I want to add is this, that the governor comes with his own logis. He comes with the whole category of personal aids and vehicles and so on. So the fact that the money will not be the same will only be discounted by the fact that more money will go into recurrent as it boosts the egos of the governors. That is a fact. There is something that you are saying that it will give a few employment opportunities. That also goes into reducing the amount of money available for development. So this argument has to be looked at all points, including the resources that will be required. But more importantly, I'm saying this conversation is actually about the entire constitutional mechanism, and that as we talk about additional, so must you talk about reduction somewhere else. So it's a holistic argument that won't just go piecemeal and so on. Indeed, one of the problems that we had with our independent constitution is precisely piecemeal amendments that eventually led us to a contradictory document that we had to overhaul at some point. The beauty about this constitution is that it is crafted in such a way that at least certain things won't happen the way the other amendments happened in the previous constitution. So I'm still preparing us for a bigger conversation. May I agree? Maybe it's a constitutional moment. Maybe it's time for us to sit and discuss, but it's also time for us to gain and lose. So if Kuria and others don't get it, or Tesos and others who have had the governorship continue to say they are marginalized, then we're not talking about the same thing. Iko shida. And where is that problem? Let's keep finding out where it is. Is it in our democracy? Is it in our political structure? Or is it in our economic structure? Remember, one of the things that they are not talking about, and they should be talking about more, is that this government came on the understanding that they needed bottom-up. Things needed to start from down, coming up. In order for that to happen, we must think about what is at the top. So I'm inviting you to also look at the executive and say that, like the Swiss, maybe it needs to be shared in such a manner that the confederations, which we are now building, are the ones that will determine how the executive power is shared. What Bonnie is saying about how then the Senate will be constructed should be something that we begin. So let's begin a bottom-up conversation. Let's not just stick to this 10 or 11. Let's ask, what do we need to do to reconfigure, to re-engineer our governance system? And of necessity, let us also touch on the executive.
And in the bottom-up conversation, Herman, whereas you seem to say that this is a conversation you should have, the 10 extra counties is a conversation you should have, many would actually say, yes, let's have an addition, but let's not define where. Because what they have done is to even define the exact counties. So let's talk as a country and see what is it that we need, which counties it is that we need to tinker. What would you say to those who are advancing that particular agenda?
It's a conversation. The idea is a conversation. And you asked about referendum. It's a conversation. And Martin has correctly put it. You can't touch one part without touching another part and without affecting the whole. And that leads to me to be happy that what I'm thinking about will ultimately happen. Kenyans will have a national conversation. You can call it what you want to call it. You can call it constitutional moment. You can call it bombers. You can call it what you want it. Certainly, it cannot be the circus going on at Bomas today. What is at Bomas is too small to encompass this conversation. Even this small one we're having this morning, that this conversation of counties cannot be handled within the confines of what's going on at Bomas. It is too restrictive, too constraining, too limiting in many ways, including even space and time, and who are the participants. You see, but it's a conversation we'll have. But ultimately, like I said, ultimately, Kenyans will have to sit down and ask themselves one fundamental question. Why are we still a poor, dirty, third world country 60 years after independence? And the answer to that will be, we have been skirting around the main problem, which is the political question in this country. Once you address the political question in this country, all these things we are talking about will fall in place. And the economy of this country will grow. So that some of you young people will be looking around and say, God, why didn't this thing happen for our fathers Kenamanyora to enjoy? How could they have left before these good things come? This country has the potential to hit. You know, when you move around in this world and look at what we have vis-a-vis what other people have, this country has great potential. That's why even to the West, Kenya is not just another African country. You get it?
Yes.
This is an important country and we can take off. But first, we are being bogged down by the political question. And we must address that in a national conversation. When we arrive at a national charter, it will have all these issues people are talking about, all of them.
Maro, what is the end game? Because you have presented a memoranda to the National Dialogue Committee. According to Kalonzo, they're going to receive all of them, but they will have to be interrogated. Martin asked by who. And then you have also another structure of, you have a bill towards this. How exactly do you want to see this actualized?
You know, when you're drowning, Karanja, I don't know if you've ever attempted to drown.
To drown.
All right?
That's a good attempt. Don't try. Don't try. I've done so.
You know, you hold on to everything, including form. You're right? You know, when a river is flowing, there'll be form. You even hold on to that one because you're just looking for a solution. You're sick. You're looking for a solution. The people whom we represent feel that the way to deal with this matter is to have, because if where we are not being served properly, then let's have our own. All right? Now, they tell us as their elected leaders. And the Constitution in 95 says it is now then me, the member of parliament, who will go to parliament and figure out how do I sort this issue so that our people can get justice and fairness. And then I find a solution. The solution lies in now the bill that you've just alluded to. So I did draft a bill because I know it needs to happen in parliament. And then I'll pray to God we get 2/3. I pray to God that Senate also accepts it and gets 2/3. And then it moves to the next level. But even as we were going on with that,
10 seconds.
As we were going on with that, come in national dialogue. I mean, that is also form. Let's hold on to that also. Probably if we took our matters there, and I thank God that happened, because look at us now. I'd never shared a platform with these two great gentlemen here. I've watched them for years on end on national television, bringing out the issues of this country. Now, look at us now. The national the dialogue has brought that conversation home, given us an opportunity to discuss these things. So, the end game is this. Those that we represent feel that the best way they can get fairness on devolution is an additional county for them. And we will pursue that according to the Constitution. In fact, we believe that we are the only ones who are following the Constitution. Because it is the Constitution we are reading and finding space and voice where to air our views.
And Marwa, of course you shall have more time to explain this new push to Kenyans. Including the 26 that you have in your caucus. But Martin, closing comments on this, because it's interesting how time moves very fast when you're having a very candid conversation. Closing comments. he says we don't need a referendum. He says we can actually actualize this without having to take Kenyans the referendum way. Very briefly.
We have an opportunity to discuss, and whatever they do will of necessity take us to a constitutional moment where we might have to look at the constitution again. So whether they want to avoid the referendum or whether they want to fit within a referendum. The national dialogue, from the very conversation on the agenda I've seen, and plus what I'm hearing, we are going to go to a referendum because certain things that are going to be touched will require majority to come to this. Remember that in our constitution, there is a borrowing that we have, which is popular initiative and parliament initiative. And either of these must find public participation.
Haman.
I think it's a good moment for the country. I want to repeat, I strongly believe Kenyans will sit down and talk, because these issues cannot be wished away. You cannot live in the same country with a sizable number of members of that country believing they are marginalized. Strongly so. So the people who want extra counties are Kenyans who feel they are marginalized. The rest cannot go on with the journey, leaving this behind. So these are among the issues that will set us off on a table to discuss our country. And I want to very strongly recommend to those groups and individuals who history has given an opportunity and a calling. I want to ask them, please, expand Bomas.
Expand and expand.
Remove Bomas from Bomas and give
take
it to
Kenyans.
Kenyans.
Thank you very much, Haman Manyora there, a political analyst, as well as Martin Olo, advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Marwa Kitayama, the member of parliament, Kuria East, and also chairperson of that caucus, 26-member caucus that pushes for the additional counties. This is a conversation that will be ongoing, because we are talking about this. We don't have an IEBC. We need to have reviewed our boundaries by April of next year, 8 to 12 years. That's what the constitution says. And it's a conversation that we will have here on NTV and make you make sense out of it. Winnie Lubembe is already in studio, meaning that I'm eating into her time. And she's back. She's coming up with Your World. My name is Ibrahim Karanja. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we will definitely be calling you again.